Hi, it's Tom Steves here with Sentek Instrument, and I'm going to take you through how to use our high-resolution distributed acoustic sensing system today, the HiResDAS. What we have here on our benchtop is the DAS Nova 05. That means it's designed for 5-meter spacings between our fiber brag gratings. This is the interrogator unit, hooked up to our spool of fiber here, suspended by some rubber bands to keep it isolated. And I believe this spool has about 1,000 meters of sensing zone with a 500-meter lead. Up here on top, we've taken a couple of those sensor zones and wrapped them around a little piezoelectric cylinder that's hooked up to our signal generator, so we can show an example of measuring tiny amounts of strain through several of the sensing areas. And then, of course, we have a PC over here that has our interrogator software. The DAS Nova controller is what we'll be using today. First thing, before you get started, you want to make sure that your fiber is hooked up to the interrogator. It's bad news if that's not plugged in and you turn things on, so be certain of that every time you use this device. Then you simply just want to turn the key over to the on position. It takes a few minutes for it to warm up and get everything initialized. You'll see that green light next to the ready start blinking, and when it finishes and goes solid, that means it's ready to connect to your PC. So while it's warming up, I'm going to go ahead and open the software over here. DAS Nova controller right here. This is the interface we'll be using today. That's where you'll see all your sensing zones, and over here are some of the controls that you can use. Change your sensor resolution, which won't be the case because we know it's 5 meters. You've got some high pass and low pass cutoff filters, the number of sensors you'll be displaying at any given point in time. And this right here is the important part, deciding where you're going to store your data. So for today's purposes, I've made a folder in our documents that's just a demo folder, and that's where everything's going to be stored. You click Save, or actually let's call it Demo, give the file a name, and click Save. Now our green light on the unit has gone solid, so it's initialized and it's ready to connect to the software. You'll go up to the upper left hand here and just click the Initialize button. It might blink a few more times, and then once that green light's gone solid, it is connected, and it looks like it's good to go. So now that's initialized and connected to the interrogator, you'll just simply hit the Start button. And here you see our data coming across the screen. It's a little messy looking at first. Now you can click and drag this interface around so you can set up the most ideal view, whatever it is that you want to see. And the reason it's jumping around like that right now is because we have our auto fit feature on. So I normally turn that off, and then up here at the top of the screen you can set your scale limits. So let's turn it down to, say, plus or minus 0.2 microstrain, and I'll show you the scale here in a minute so that you can see what I'm talking about. And now that's a nice smooth carpet of sensors, and you'll see that's microstrain in the background. We have a scale of plus or minus 0.2. So the system is on, it's gathering data. Let's go ahead and turn on our signal generator so you can see what a little bit of strain looks like on this system. Take a second for it to turn on here. We have channel 1 hooked up, and I think there are 4 or 5 sensor zones wrapped around that little cylinder that will be able to show us what's going on as it oscillates back and forth. So channel 1, we'll turn it on. And here you see at the back of our sensors, that's the signal being generated and being sent to this little piezoelectric cylinder right now. So we can run that and capture data for as long as we want to. I'm going to show you how to capture a little bit of data while we're here, though. There are several ways to do this. You can click Trigger, and it'll, for this duration, 3 seconds, capture 1 round of data every time it cycles through. And let's go over to the folder where it's storing this, and you see we've stored 2 files for every second, so we've got 6 new files here. You can also, instead of hitting Trigger, hit Autosave, in which case it stores everything that it's capturing. And you can see our files are getting larger and larger and larger and larger as it's capturing all that data. I'll go ahead and turn that off right now. And all of these files are in a DAS file format. So a lot of people want to work in something they're a little more comfortable with. If you go up here to File, You want to open the data that you're interested in. So let's just take this first one we stored here today. Hit open, and then go back to File and click Save as CSV. Now that should store it at exactly the same point where you're storing all your raw data, and if you look now, we have a CSV file. So let's see what form this data comes out in. A couple seconds for Excel to open up here. Maybe a few more seconds than we wanted. And there's our data. Basically what you're looking at here, it gives you the number of sensors, the number of measurements it took in this particular batch, each one of the positions down the length of the sensor, and then a time scale. And this matrix down here is raw data of microstrain measurements from the system. Going from right to left, it is time in milliseconds, and you can see that by scrolling all the way out. The time continues with all of these columns. And then going from top to bottom, it is position according to the position up here listed across, and I believe that should go down to just over 1,000 sensor zones if we keep scrolling down. And it looks like we're right at about 1,023 unique sensor zones that we captured in this particular batch. And that's how you run the high-resolution DAS controller from Sentek Instrument. I hope you don't have any questions. If not, we have a very extensive manual to walk you through everything, troubleshooting to connection to getting it hooked up to your system. I hope you enjoyed the Sentek Instrument.